It definitely had to be one of the most interesting, shocking, wackiest, craziest deadlines we've ever seen in the NBA, but it has indeed come and gone. And now that it's over, right, now that the dust has effectively settled, we want to kind of take a step back, right, and look and reflect on what happened in this trade deadline, who got better, who were the winners, who were the losers, right, as well as who is positioned best to compete going forward and possibly making a run at an NBA championship and dethroning the Boston Celtics. So what we're going to do is take a look at each one of the deals, or deals that I felt like made the most amount of difference. There were a ton of deals that were made. I can't keep track of all of them. I'm going to go over quite a few here and kind of run through them and their significance, their importance, as well as how they impact the teams that made those trades in the first place. And then kind of, like I said at the end, give my winners and losers and who I think is best positioned going forward. So let's get into it. So we're going to get things started with the trade that set off all this craziness last week, that Luka Doncic trade to Los Angeles, right? So remember, just a quick recap, I already did a full video on this. Luka Doncic was sent to the Los Angeles Lakers along with Markieff Morris and Maxi Kleber for Anthony Davis, Max Christie, a 2029 first-round pick, right? Obviously, I already gave my thoughts on how I felt like this was the most disrespectful superstar trade in NBA history, right? Obviously, go watch the video there on my channel. Something has changed, though, right? You know, I do think this trade actually, I think of it more favorably for the Los Angeles Lakers than I did when I initially had seen it, right? I think I was judging this acquisition and the redundant skill sets that LeBron and Luka have based off the bad taste in my mouth of how things ended with Westbrook, especially with the fact that Luka isn't the strongest defender in the NBA. But that side of the ball, not trying to diminish its importance, but at the same time, the fit between LeBron and Luka, look, at the end of the day, these are two high IQ basketball players, and I think they're going to find a way to make it work. Two guys in LeBron and Luka who have super high IQ, can play off each other. Luka can actually take more pressure off LeBron. This will be the first time we're going to see LeBron featured in a role that isn't the primary star role, if that makes sense, right? So I definitely kind of switched my tune on that. And I also think the acquisition that we're going to go over here in a little bit later, getting that center as well, kind of helps shore up their defense. I still have questions on the defensive side of the ball for the Lakers, of course, but I'm thinking, man, if LeBron can make it work with Kyrie, there's no reason him and Luka can't do that. I do have concerns about how the ball stops with Luka and, you know, the step back threes and the isolation, but I think Kyrie did the same exact thing, right? So I do think that the fit could definitely work. I'm curious to see how it works, but I definitely think it can be there. The defensive concerns are still there for sure, don't get it twisted, but I have changed my tune a little bit, and I'm curious, I'm intrigued to see how that pairing fits when they get to suit up together for the first time. In addition to the fact that I think that Luka's mindset is going to be so key and important. Dallas, like I said, disrespected him. He's seen the disrespect. I called it the most disrespectful superstar trade in NBA history. How is he going to channel this into motivation to be better? And then also being around a guy like LeBron, a champion, a legend, one of the greatest players, if not the greatest player to ever play in LeBron James. How is that going to impact Luka? I believe he'll be all the more better for it, in addition to the fact that I think his approach to the game will change in terms of conditioning and nutrition. Being around a guy like LeBron definitely will teach him how to become a better winner. So we'll see how that pans out in the future going forward. The next trade would be the San Antonio Spurs. It was a 3-team deal between the Spurs, the Kings, and the Chicago Bulls. The San Antonio Spurs acquiring De'Aaron Fox and Jordan McLaughlin, while the Sacramento Kings acquired City Sissoko, Zach LaVine, along with a plethora of picks, 3 first-round picks and 3 second-round picks. And the Chicago Bulls themselves receiving Zach Collins, Trey Jones, Kevin Huerter, and their own 2025 first-round pick back from San Antonio. So, look, at the end of the day, I think this is a great trade for the San Antonio Spurs. You get a star that you can finally pair with De'Aaron Fox, Victor Wembanyama, a guard, a quick, twitchy, fast guard that can score, that can also get Wemby good looks, easy looks, along with getting out in transition and running. And he's not a bad defensive guard as well, in addition to the fact that he's clutch. He's a closer, right? I like this a lot from the San Antonio perspective. The Sacramento perspective, they to me reunited a terribly mediocre duo in Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan, right? We've seen this work or not worked, excuse me, many times before in the past. It's almost the exact same build and makeup of the team they had in Chicago, except Sabonis is in the role of Vucevic, right? And we know that that team, yeah, they'll win you games in the regular season, but that's the full extent of what they can do. Not a huge fan of it from a Sacramento perspective, but I like the picks they got back. Got a lot of picks, as they should, for a guy like De'Aaron Fox. The Chicago Bulls getting Zach Collins, Trey Jones, Kevin Huerter. The Bulls, to me, are in a retooling, rebuilding mode, so I'm not going to judge them too harshly. I do think Zach Collins, I think the players that they got back are quality players, so I'll give them credit for that. Moving on, right? The next trade, it was another 3-team deal. Between the Wizards, the Bucks, and the New York Knicks, right? So the Wizards received Chris Middleton, AJ Johnson, and a 2028 first-round pick swap. The Milwaukee Bucks received Kyle Kuzma, Patrick Baldwin. Patrick Baldwin ended up getting traded to San Antonio after this trade, along with Jericho Sims and a 2025 second-round pick, right? And then the New York Knicks got DeLon Wright and cash considerations. From Washington perspective, they continue to be a money laundering organization. Like, I don't know how many of you guys have seen the TV show Good Girls, right? Do you remember how, those who've seen it, remember grocery store that those girls ended up robbing, how it ended up being like a front for the cartel? That's what the Washington Wizards are, right? They're not a real organization. They're just there. They exist within the confines of the NBA to serve no purpose, just to say they're an NBA team. I feel so bad for Chris Middleton. I wonder if a buyout is on the table or if it's off the table. I really hate that that's where he ended up. But like I said, they're a money laundering organization, right? When you look at the Wizards, they're always the team that facilitates trades and takes players that teams don't want in 3-team deals. I see it all the time. So not much of a perspective for them. I'm not even going to really acknowledge them here, except to say that I do feel bad for Chris Middleton. From the Milwaukee Bucks perspective, they got younger, right? Getting a guy like Kyle Kuzma. Look, Kyle Kuzma, it's interesting though, right? With Kyle Kuzma, I thought this was going to be a good deal, and I'm not saying it's not a good deal for the Milwaukee Bucks, but I also can say that I didn't realize that Kyle Kuzma shot the 3 ball so poorly thus far this season, right? He's 28.1% from 3, right? He is giving them 15 points per game. He gives you a younger player that can get out and run in transition, in addition to the fact that he's actually a very stout defender, defends super well, and I think that's going to help Milwaukee quite well. They need as much defense as they can get, right? And I do like the acquisition of Jericho Sims, a nice little big that kind of strengthens their depth in the forward court, so I like that for them. And then the Knicks, I do like them getting DeLon Wright, and I guess cash considerations there as well. The next trade, one of the bigger trades, finally the Jimmy Butler saga ended. Oh my goodness, this thing drug on forever. I think all of us wanted this to end as soon as possible, but Jimmy Butler was finally dealt to the Golden State Warriors in a 4-team deal in which the Golden State Warriors acquired Jimmy Butler. The Miami Heat acquired Andrew Wiggins, Kyle Anderson, PJ Tucker, who ended up being eventually traded to Toronto, a protected first-round pick, and the Jazz received Dennis Schroeder, who eventually wound up in Detroit. The Detroit Pistons themselves received Lindy Waters and Josh Richardson. Like I said before, I'm glad the saga is finally over, right? So this will be him in Golden State, right? And I don't really know what to make of this. I feel like I need to see it first, but first impressions, I really don't like the fit with Jimmy here in Golden State. I think he's a good player. Look, good players always figure it out. Like I said with LeBron and Luka earlier, they'll always figure it out, but on some level with Jimmy and Steph and Dre, I don't know how that fits. I also don't know how the Warriors held on to Jonathan Kuminga in this trade. I know he's been wanting out for quite some time, and I'm surprised he didn't end up being included on this deal, but the Warriors need 3-point shooting, and Jimmy's not a terrible 3-point shooter. He's shooting 36% from 3 this season. I'm not going to hate on him and what he brings to the table, and the fact that he's a guy that's led a teams that had no business being in the NBA Finals to the NBA Finals. I don't take that lightly, but at the same time, my perspective on this is I just don't know where the Warriors are going. I don't see them going anywhere with this trade. I don't think their trajectory has been altered by acquiring Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler's a very good player, and so is Steph Curry, but at the same time, that West is so competitive, it's going to be very hard for me to see them making any type of noise out there. For the Miami Heat, I like this deal, getting Andrew Wiggins and Kyle Anderson. very solid players in that first round pick, I think it's a good deal for them. I think they're going to continue to be a tough, scrappy team that eventually tries to find its way to getting maybe that one featured star. But as far as Terry Rozier and Kel'el Ware and Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero, all those guys on that roster, I really do think getting a guy like Andrew Wiggins can do anything to help. The Utah Jazz, they traded Dennis Schroeder. The Detroit Pistons eventually ended up with him. I feel for Dennis Schroeder. I feel for him, man. He went from Brooklyn to Golden State to Utah to Detroit, all in the span of like the past 4 months. Right? Obviously, I don't know how it worked with him being traded these last couple of days in terms of like, did he actually go to Utah? Did he actually? Like, I don't know how all that worked out, but I do feel bad that he continues to not be able to find a home. And then Detroit, I do like the fact that they ended up with Dennis Schroeder, and I like the fact that they got Josh Richardson as well. I think those are good pickups. Guys that can shoot and guys that can get to the rim along with defend. I think that's going to help them. Next, we have, like I said, the Sacramento Kings. Another deal for them that I don't think moves any type of needle. They got Jonas Valanciunas. I think they really just acquired him to kind of make Sabonis happy by getting a guy getting his fellow countryman on the roster, somebody that he is probably very good friends with. But at the same time, I don't know. The Sacramento Kings, once again, I just don't see how this makes sense from a fit perspective, how this puts them in a position to contend. I don't think so. And then obviously, like I said, the Washington Wizards, the money launderers, once again, are at it again. Took City Sissoko and 2 second-round picks. Trade after that, this one was interesting. The Brandon Ingram trade. Brandon Ingram finally traded to Toronto from the New Orleans Pelicans in exchange for Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk, a first-round pick and a second-round pick. I'm curious to see what this looks like, right? The Toronto Raptors have a lot of wings on that roster. RJ Barrett, a guy like Emmanuel Quickly isn't a wing, but he's solid, along with Scotty Barnes. They have a lot on that roster that I don't know if they fit, but there are very talented players there on that roster, so I'm curious to see how that goes for them. The New Orleans Pelicans, I think they're in a wait and see kind of mode and trying to figure out what direction they want to take and steps they want to move forward. The next trade after that is the center trade that I was alluding to earlier that the Lakers got from the Charlotte Hornets. They got Mark Williams in exchange for Dalton Knecht and Cam Reddish and a 2030 pick swap. I like that for the Lakers a lot. Didn't take very much, in my opinion. Just getting rid of those offloading those two players, I think is a big deal for them. And getting Mark Williams, I think, is the biggest deal, right? You need that center. You need that guy that can be very much a presence inside, can be a lob threat. Obviously, I think there are concerns with his effort and injury history. But at the same time, when you look at a guy like Mark Williams, you're not going to have a ton of effort when you're playing for a bad basketball team. Think of PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford, right? Daniel Gafford traded from the Wizards to the Mavericks last season. All of a sudden, he helps them become a big piece of going to the NBA Finals. The same thing with PJ Washington. The next trade, another trade for the Charlotte Hornets. They received Yusuf Nurkic in a 2026 first-round pick in exchange for Cody Martin and Vasilije Micic. Another trade that I feel like isn't really going to have consequence. I don't believe in the Phoenix Suns. I don't believe in the Charlotte Hornets, of course. So I think this was more of a trade for Phoenix to get Yusuf Nurkic off the books, which they were able to accomplish, getting to Phoenix eventually. And now, a trade that I really am high on, the Cleveland Cavaliers acquiring DeAndre Hunter in exchange for Karis LeVert, Georges Niang, 3 second-round picks and 2 pick swaps. I think this is a really good deal for the Cavs. Not only did they acquire a wing defender that can shoot the 3-ball relatively well and defend bigger players that the Cavs lacked because of the fact that Dean Wade had an inconsistency issue in terms of being on the court and health-wise, but they were able to acquire him and also get under the luxury tax, right? So they get their long-coveted big wing defender, right, that's shooting 39% from 3. This guy's shooting 5.2 catch and shoot 3-pointers per game, and he's shooting them at 39.3%, right? He's shooting 39% from 3 on 6.7 attempts per game, 47.1%, almost 50% on wide open 3-point attempts per game. Left corner, remember the Cavs are a corner 3-point shooting team, right? That's where the bulk of their 3-pointers come, right? He's shooting 42.9% from the left corner, lower on the right corner, right? 34.3%, and then above the break he's shooting 39.8% from 3. I got those stats courtesy of a graphic from I think Mac Perry. Shout out him on YouTube. So this is a team that, to me, with the Cavs, get a shooter, get that long acclaimed shooter that they want, in addition to the fact that he's a great defender, can defend at big 6'8", 225, a 7'2" wingspan, makes life difficult for a guy like Jason Tatum, perhaps, right? I think I saw a stat, has to double check, that Jason Tatum since 2019 hasn't had the highest shooting percentage when guarded by a guy like DeAndre Hunter. That's a big get for them, along with staying under the luxury tax. I know that the fans in Cleveland are very high on George Niang and Karis LeVert, but you got under the luxury tax and you got a big wing defender that you've been coveting for so long. This is a great get, a great find by Kobe Altman. Kudos to him for making this trade. And the last trade we're covering, right, is the Bogdanovic trade. The Clippers received Bogdanovic, another trade from the Atlanta Hawks, in which they sent Terrence Mann, Bones Highland, and 3 second-round picks to the Hawks as well. Like this trade a lot for the Clippers. Getting another three-point shooter can do nothing but help. But overall, who were the winners and losers in this deadline? Well, I'll put it up on the screen there, right? Just throw it in there right away. I think the Cavs, the Lakers, the Spurs, and the Clippers were the biggest winners of this deadline. Look, I think the Cavs got their wing defender that they really desperately needed, right? They needed a guy that could kind of shore up that wing depth. Dean Wade has proven unreliable to a degree because of his health. Isaac Okoro, kind of the same thing. Getting a guy like DeAndre Hunter not only fortifies that wing depth, but it gives them so much more versatility with their lineups, their ability to go small, keep it big if they want with Jared Allen, pushing potentially Max Strus to the bench, or if they want to bring DeAndre Hunter off the bench like his role was in Atlanta, it works for them, right? They're a team that, I was talking about earlier. Is there a team that I think could potentially dethrone Boston? This, to me, puts them square in that position to potentially dethrone the Celtics. So to me, they're the biggest winner of this deadline, but there are other winners too, right? The Lakers, I think, are a big winner as well. Getting Luka, getting Mark Williams, right? Extending their future window, if you will, in terms of success that they can have, along with, furthering what they can do in the present as well with LeBron, right? The San Antonio Spurs got Wemby, a very solid star running mate, a former clutch player of the year, a guy that's also been a former all-star, quick as can be. They call him Swipe with the Fox. De'Aaron Fox, very, very good pickup, can create his own shot, can create shot for others, can get to the rim, and actually solid defensively. And the Clippers getting Bogdanovic. I love that a lot for them, right? Biggest losers, the Phoenix Suns, who to me just seem to be in disarray, right? They thought they were going to trade Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant thought he was going to get traded and was not happy with the fact that he was unaware of trades even happening in general, like his name being mentioned in trade talks in general. I know he wasn't super happy about that, wasn't super thrilled. They're going to have, quote unquote, evaluations period for the whole team when the end of the season approaches. It just doesn't seem like a team that is making the right steps and taking the right steps going about winning going forward. I just don't like that for them. The Memphis Grizzlies, I felt like, could have also used a wing player. I didn't see them make any acquisitions. They did trade away Marcus Smart, but I do think more needs to be done on Memphis' side because I do think it can compete in the West, but I don't see them being able to do that as currently constructed, especially with the rest of the West getting better. And then the biggest loser of all, Dennis Schroeder. I'm actually half joking here, but I do feel bad. He has been moved around so much. Started the season, like I said, in Brooklyn, then Golden State, then Utah, and now Detroit. Hopefully he finds that home in Detroit, but that's a more facetious loser than an actual loser. I think him in Detroit is actually a good thing. I'm just kind of messing around saying he's been traded and passed around as much as he has, right? But those are my thoughts. 2024-2025 NBA trade deadline. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Who's the biggest winner? Who's the biggest loser? Who is now best suited to dethrone Boston, or is anybody best now suited to dethrone Boston as all? Is Boston going to remain the defending champion? Let me know in the comment section below. Leave a like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. But until next time, we hope you keep it inside the lines.